So here we have an example of a tile pattern. We have different figures that are labeled, figures 0, 1, 2, and 3. And if we count up how many tiles are in each, we get 3, 5, 7, and 9. Now, it's often a good idea to put that in a table. X in your table is always going to be the figure number from above. Y is those number of tiles that we counted. Now there's always going to be some sort of pattern which will let us do algebra in this situation. One thing that is also handy, we've got our diagram representation, we've got our table. It's good to represent this as an equation because you can do a lot of things with equations. So the equation in this case would be y equals 2x plus 3. Now you get a lot of practice doing things like that, writing equations in chapter 7. But just quickly, that's because y, the number of tiles, can be predicted by 2 times the x, and that's because the x, the growth, always happens by 2's, and you start out at 3 tiles. So the thing that really gets people early on in algebra is they're not careful enough what x and y stand for. Now, it was in the table above, but it's not a bad idea to label it if you have an equation as well. Y is the number of tiles, x is the figure number. Because when you're asked a question, like how many tiles are in figure 20? Well, we don't even really need the diagram and the table, especially because we're going way out to figure 20. This is where the equation is most useful. All you have to do with that figure 20 is put it in the right spot in the equation. And if things are labeled figure 20, that's going to be the figure number. So we just take our equation, y equals 2x plus 3, and fill that 20 in the right spot. That would be for the x. So we would still have y equals, but now we have 2 times 20 plus 3. Well, that's just something we can simplify down. Let's see what happens. Y equals 2 times 20 is 40 plus 3. So the y ends up equaling 43. Now, let's see if that makes sense. We wanted to know how many tiles. Y is the number of tiles, and down here we have y equals 43. So that would tell me that we have y equals 43 tiles. That was from figure 20. Now, on the other hand, we get questions like this. And this is usually where people have more trouble. Because which figure, we don't know the figure this time, but we know it has 65 tiles. So that 65 tiles, that is going to be the y value. 65 goes in for y, the number of tiles. We don't know the x, the figure number. So 2x plus 3. So 2x plus 3 we know equals 65. Now this is something we have to solve. So we can start by subtracting 3 on both sides. And we would get 62 equals 2x. If we divide both sides of that equation by 2, which is hard to show on my computer here, but just trust me, show your work, it's a good idea, we would get x equals 31. Now, does that make sense? X is the figure number, and we have 31. So it sounds like the 31st figure would have 65 tiles. That makes sense. We have the x that goes with the y we started with.